All right, we are back with another installment of my NBA Power Rankings. We are going to do teams 20 through 16 today, and then we will move on from there, obviously still in groups of 5 with 15 through 11 later on. But let's not waste any time. Let's get to team number 20. Here I have the Indiana Pacers, and, some of this is also giving respect to the fact that you look at the Pacers roster last year, they had a lot of good players on this team, and a chunk of them are still on this team, including Pascal Siakam, who is very underrated, Andrew Nembhard, Nesmith, TJ McConnell. Benedict Mathurin looks like he's going to get a bigger role this year. Rick Carlisle talked about that quite a bit over the offseason, especially with the absence of Halliburton. The reason why I have the Pacers basically teams 18 through 25, I view at not similarly, but in that same tier, obviously in descending order or ascending order, however you want to look at the ranking. But the Pacers are probably at the front of this list, or at least near the front of this tier, because they have talent. But I think we just cannot underrate how big of a loss it is that the Pacers lost Tyrese Halliburton. And that sounds like an obvious statement, right? No shit, he's the best player. There is still a lot of conversation that I found interesting during the playoffs, where whenever Siakam was having big games or whatever, and Tyrese Halliburton would have low-scoring games, or he wasn't aggressive enough or whatever, we would have this debate about who's the best player on the team. And I'm just like, guys, it's Tyrese Halliburton. He's the guy who starts the engine for everything. He's the reason for the Pacers' identity of a high-paced, high-flying offense where everyone shares the ball, and it's all stemming from Tyrese Halliburton, and they don't have that anymore. Much like how I think the Celtics are going to be really bad offensively without Jason Tatum, or at least their offense is going to take a big dent not having their engine. I view the Pacers in the same way. Tyrese Halliburton is a superstar, borderline superstar, however you want to classify it. The guy is a franchise player and can be a number one on a championship team. He's a tier 1 star, and the Pacers don't have him anymore. I also think Miles Turner is going to be a big loss, because the Pacers could at least throw out some versatile lineups defensively, because Turner could switch a little bit, got a little bit exposed in the finals, but could still hold his own. But he is a damn good rim protector, even as he gets older, and he shoots threes at a high volume. And I just think that high screen double drag play with, Halliburton, Turner, and a second big setting the screen, that just did so much damage, and the Pacers are going to sorely miss that action too. Like I said, the Pacers have some good players, and in the Eastern Conference, they could maybe scrap for a play-in seed. Abso-fucking-lutely they can. But contender, going back to the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm sorry, Pacers fans, that's what happens when you have one of the best players in the world and you don't have him anymore. I just think the offense and the team is not going to look the same. Next, at number 19, we have the Portland Trail Blazers, a team that, once the calendar year turned to 2025, I wouldn't say flew under the radar, because if you're locked into the NBA, you kind of knew Portland was one of those teams where they finished 25-25 in the year 2025. Their young guys took leaps. The team as a whole took a leap just in terms of defense. Their defensive identity really started to show. Donovan Clingan, as a rookie, was just blocking everything. Denny Avdia started to become a real engine for this Portland Trail Blazers team. Scoot Henderson coming along, and they were a top 7 defense post, January 1st of 2025. They were 7th with a 112.4 offensive rating, and that was just one, guys buying in. Two, you have hellacious defenders like Toumani Camara, and I know Suns fans right now, especially in retrospect, are regretting trading away Toumani Camara. I have a friend in particular who was a little queasy when he was, thrown into that trade with DeAndre Ayton, but Camara has shown that he is going to be an all-NBA defensive type of player. He's going to get a lot of all-league defense type votes, and that is one guy along with Donovan Clingan and, Denny Avdia. And then you add in Drew Holiday. And by the way, one of my favorite, I guess, romanticized stories of the NBA, Damian Lillard coming back home. I know he's probably not going to play this year, but that's just an awesome story, man. It really is. Looking forward to seeing him mentor Scoot and Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon Sharpe, I'm looking forward to seeing a big leap from him. I don't know, the Blazers just have a hodgepodge of young players that took a leap last year, actually became fun to watch. I remember in January, they beat the Bucks twice. There was a stretch where they won 10 of 11. They had a couple of 4-game winning streaks in there too, and it was on the backs of their defense. It was on the improvement of their young guys. And, still not sure about Chauncey Billups, but at the very least, he had this team moving in the right direction. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do this year now that they've added some pieces that I actually think will help. I think Drew Holiday will help. Now that DeAndre Ayton's not on the team anymore, it just gives runway for Hanson Yang, who is very interesting to me. Donovan Clingan, maybe Robert Williams will have a healthy stretch for once. I don't know, the Blazers are young, they're big, they're athletic at every position. Now that Anthony Simons is gone, now that Ayton's gone, some of the younger guys playing at those positions can step in a little bit more too. I really like this Portland Trail Blazers team. They are not the easy out in the West that they have been and were early last season before they turned it around in 2025. Then at number 18, I have the Phoenix Suns listed here. And I know the Suns are coming off of basically tire fire season, and this will be the third season in a row. Well, they'll be starting training camp with a new coach. But I feel like after, trading away Kevin Durant, after buying out Bradley Beal's contract and, stretching it, which I think is just going to be, that's going to be detrimental. Not going to lie. I might have just waited, but I think there might be something to, not that Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker didn't get along or whatever. It just clearly wasn't working. And so everybody went their separate ways. Beal's in a better situation with the Clippers. Kevin Durant is on a championship contender in Houston, even with the recent Fred VanVleet injury. My changing on the Rockets ranking hasn't changed at all. But everybody is on their own teams. Devin Booker, still sticking with the franchise that drafted him, that believed in him. And I'm looking at this roster and some of the players they brought in and the coach they brought in from Cleveland. And, I know a media member or two in Cleveland that vouched for Jordan Ott very heavily, coming from a smart staff in Cleveland up there. And I kind of think this team is just going to be more fun than it was last year. Remember last year, the Suns had that 8-1 or 9-2 start to the season, and then it just became a tire fire. Bradley Beal had to start coming off the bench. Nurkic went to the bench and then complained about playing time and got traded, even though he can't accept the fact that he's washed. And I'm looking at this roster now, and I see athletes, I see big wings, I see athletic centers, most importantly, actually. Drafting Malawach in the draft, bringing in Mark Williams. You still keep Nick Richards from the trade deadline. And the Suns all of a sudden have a bouncy, athletic trio of centers that they could play at any time, provide different skills. Devin Booker is definitely going to be the main ball handling engine on this team, making all the plays. And I know everybody's selling their stock. I know he didn't answer the questions that everybody wanted in the playoffs last year, because that was the big question. But I still am holding out on Jalen Green. And yes, he's going to have that 3-month stretch or that 2-month stretch of hot shooting where I feel vindicated. But I don't know. There's just something about he needs to be in a new situation. He's playing off of Devin Booker. He is going to play off Dylan Brooks so he can be covered defensively as well. And by the way, the Suns have really good wing defenders. They have Dylan Brooks. He is an all-NBA caliber level defender. Ryan Dunn. Remember when Ryan Dunn was shooting like 50% in the preseason and everyone was like, oh shit, did he figure out how to shoot? Well, the answer was no, but maybe he figures it out a bit more this year because defensively he is a menace. Jordan Goodwin provided good minutes for the Lakers. Royce O'Neal's still there. Like, the Suns have athletes and wings now to where they could kind of scheme some stuff up defensively, be competent offensively. Devin Booker, has more command of the offense now. Everybody's kind of in their pecking order type of roles. Everybody knows who the guy is. I don't know. There's just a lot of good players in the Suns rotation, I think. And I think they're going to be better than a lot of people think. I'm not putting them as a contender, obviously, or even a team to get out of the first round. Or maybe they could if, Devin Booker plays way beyond expectations. But I really like this team. Better than last year's. I'm not going to go crazy, but if you just look at this roster, I could see you could use different lineups, use different big men for the occasion, and you could still kind of go small too. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Suns this year as a potential fun league pass team. And number 17 here, I have the Dallas Mavericks. The very fortuitous Dallas Mavericks, despite what their current GM is trying to sell you, that this was all part of some grand master scheme that involved trading Luka Doncic and then winning the lottery on a 1.8% chance, but that's neither here nor there. I think the basketball team in the 2025-26 season will, one, have an identity of just being gigantic across the board. And then two, being good defensively. I don't know how good defensively because I look at this roster and outside of Caleb Martin and Max Christie, I don't know who is going to consistently, incredibly guard the quicker guards at the point of attack off the dribble. That is a concern I have, but the Mavericks have a lot of length. They have a lot of big wings that can move their feet across the perimeter, and they have two very versatile big men. Three if you want to, include Daniel Gafford coming off the bench, but Anthony Davis and Derek Lively to me that's just a really good front court to have. Even if Anthony Davis doesn't want to play his true position, which is center, he's more comfortable playing the power forward. Well, the Mavericks have the roster for that. I'm just fascinated to see how the starting lineup comes about, the different lineup combinations Jason Kidd and his staff are going to use, and just see who is going to be the engine of the offense or who's going to table set, so to speak, because Kyrie Irving most definitely isn't going to be coming back probably until January, early February of next year. But man, they have length across the board. They have shooting across the board if you include, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Cooper Flagg, maybe one of these other guards you bring in D'Angelo Russell. Maybe he can get hot for a month or two, but they're definitely going to have to, cobble together some stuff at the point guard spot unless you just want to start all big and go Max Christie, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Anthony Davis. No, Cooper Flagg, excuse me. See, I don't even know. Cooper Flagg's going to start, obviously, so I imagine he's going to be small forward. And that's going to be interesting because I think his best position will end up being the 4, but you have Klay, PJ, Coop, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively. I just wonder who's going to table set out of that. Do you take out Klay Thompson and put in Max Christie? I don't know what you do, but I do know this. The Mavericks have a lot of talent, and I didn't even mention Dante Exum, who, when he's healthy, I feel like he's played good minutes for the Mavericks. He's definitely still a, above average defender, but they have talent across the board. And not only that, they have size. And I actually think they're going to be really good this year. I think Cooper Flagg is going to be special. I think he's going to be a special franchise player. I think he's really talented, and I think he's going to have a big year one. And I love this roster. I love how funky it is. I love how unique it is. And you definitely, play to your advantages with this unique roster construction. So hopefully they stay healthy. Hopefully Derek Lively stays healthy mainly this year because I thought he had a really good rookie year. And man, he was just beat to hell with injuries last year. And yeah, I'm pretty decently high on this Mavericks team. And that's saying something because 6 months ago, I was out on the future of this team, and then they end up winning the lottery. It's funny how sports works. And then at number 16, and honestly, well, I'm not surprised, but it's kind of funny that I'm kind of buying some stock back after, pretty much selling it last season, but I have the Miami Heat here at 16. And if you just look at their team now and their roster, I just think this is the type of team Eric Spoelstra loves to coach. You know, you remember those lean years before they got Jimmy Butler where there was one season with the Dion Waiters teams where they started 11-30 and then finished the season 30-11 to bring it back to 500. There was a few teams, you know, after the LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh Big Three era sort of was dying down, where this is just where Eric Spoelstra shines as a coach. And I think they have a little bit more talent now than those teams in those down years. Like, I know Bam Adebayo had a really poor offensive season last year, but he is still an all-world level defender. Does Khalil Ware get in shape and come into the season in shape like Eric Spoelstra, you know, expressed very clearly during the offseason as a thing he would like to, you know, see in terms of improvement from his young big man? He ended up being a really good draft pick last year. I like him a lot. But obviously, Eric Spoelstra still felt like he had, you know, some growth to make just in terms of fitting the Heat culture and the Heat professionalism. And speaking of Heat culture, the trade for Davion Mitchell was fucking awesome. When that trade happened, I could not think of a more hand-in-glove fit just in terms of player mentality matching the culture mentality of an organization. Someone who is nicknamed Off Night, someone who is known for his work ethic, always taking the ball with him everywhere, you know, going to an organization that demands excellence, demands master conditioning, demands all this stuff just to get on the court for the Miami Heat. Can't think of a better pairing, and Davion Mitchell just fucking took advantage of that situation. Shot 44% from three. Now that's a small sample size. We'll see if it levels out to more of a 37, 38%. And if he gets it to that number, or even if he gets it to 36.5% or whatever, that's still really good because he can still pass. He can start at point guard, especially now that Tyler Hero is not going to, you know, be healthy to start the season. But I'm looking at a projected starting lineup of, let's just say, Davion Mitchell, Norm Powell, who they got in the Clippers trade. Another reason why I like this Heat team a lot. Norm Powell is underrated. One of the more underrated fringe all-star players in the NBA. Someone who is just really good. So you have Davion, you have Norm Powell, Andrew Wiggins. Can the Heat bring out a little bit of 2021-22 Andrew Wiggins and kind of get him on track now that he's going into his first training camp with the Miami Heat? Can Terry Rozier figure something out? Can he, you know, reclaim some of his value before he enters unrestricted free agency in the summer of 2027? I like the Simone Fontecchio pickup. I just think he's a really good shooter. Nikola Jovic and Jaime Jaquez, I'm looking for a leap from those guys as well. They just have a nice collection of young players and veteran players that are already good. There's no, like, obviously there's no Jimmy Butler. There's no, you know, even a tier below Jimmy Butler, I would argue. There's nothing like that on this Heat team. But what the Heat do have is a collection of solid to good players that all kind of fit the mentality of the quote-unquote Miami Heat culture, or basically Eric Spoelstra's style of play. I imagine they're going to get up and down a bit. There's definitely going to be a lot more threes, especially now that Norm Powell is in the fold and Fontecchio's in the fold. Really was looking forward to seeing what Tyler Hero would look like coming into this year with just the full reign in front of them and not the specter of the Jimmy Butler trade or anything like that hanging over this team. But we'll have to wait and see on that. I really like this Heat team. They have a collection of good players. And in the Eastern Conference, a well-coached team with players that play hard and that are athletic. They kind of restocked on the athleticism a little bit too in the shooting. I could see them winning quite a few games this year.